Here's my ghost story. Back when I was a kid, I'd say about maybe 8 or 9 years old, we lived in the oldest neighborhood in my city. It was actually a Dutch neighborhood way back 1850s is when the Dutch settlers started settling into our city, and they settled in this neighborhood. It was called the Roosevelt Park neighborhood. It was actually all Dutch. There was actually a old Dutch store that was there when I was a kid. That was very old. We used to go there all the time. And no, it's no longer there now. The whole neighborhood's changed over the years since I've been a kid. And we had this factory at the front of our street, which was called the Heckman Biscuit Company, which is owned now by Kellogg. And another unique thing was when I was a kid, my whole family on my mom's side lived on the exact same street. Every house on that street was family, a relative, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, which was pretty unique. But our street, the houses, I believe, date back to the 1880s. I believe. I'm not exactly sure, but I believe they date way back to the 1880s. And our house had it was a 3-bedroom house, but the 2 bedrooms upstairs were enormous. I mean, it was just enormous. I had a bedroom downstairs at one point, but my bedroom was upstairs. It was a 3-bedroom house, colonial style house. It was built somewhere in the 1800s, 1880s. It was just a unique looking house. We also had a stairway that went up to the upstairs, but there was also another stairway that was hidden behind one of the walls. I never knew why it was hidden or anything, so I never knew that. But as a kid, like I was saying, we lived there. I think we lived there for like 4 to 5 years. I'm not exactly sure, but I was a kid. I was 9 or 10 years old when we lived there at this place. But I can remember one night when my dad and I were home. It was just the two of us. I'm not sure where everybody else was, but it was me and my dad. And this was in the 1970s. I had I had a Evil Knievel motorcycle set that I played with. You wind up and you play and all that. So I basically, went up our attic area where our attic was, decent sized room. Used to play up in there. Nothing weird ever happened or anything like that. Until this one day, I was up in the attic for a while, playing by myself. Just me and my dad were home. I was just playing like, any normal kid would, and playing with my Evil Knievel motorcycle and having fun or whatever. And all of a sudden, I felt something in the room with me. I couldn't see it, but I definitely felt something. It was just the weirdest feeling that something just overcame me. It's just, I felt like something was watching me. And being a 9-year-old boy, you don't think of stuff like that, but it just, I didn't know what it was or anything. And Um, all of a sudden I heard noises. I heard something coming from a corner in the attic. At first I thought it was an animal or mouse or something like that, but it didn't seem like it was a mouse. I couldn't see it. It was in the shadows. And it just felt like it was starting to walk around the room. Like I was in the middle of the room. I was playing or whatever. And it felt like it was like walking around me, like trying to figure out what I was or whatever. And all of a sudden I just heard this noise come from it. Like it was just weird. And I didn't know what that was. And I got the heck out of there. Went downstairs to get my dad. And my dad comes back upstairs. And I told him what happened, what I heard, and he was looking for animals or whatever. And while we were in there, I noticed that my toys were missing. My toys were gone. And it's funny because I never saw that Evel Knievel toy ever again. And I didn't think anything of it at the time. So that was the first encounter. There was a couple encounters that I had there, and I'm not sure if my mom and dad had encounters or not, but I know I did. And the second encounter was we were all asleep, all of us. I was like half asleep, half awake, or whatever, and I thought I heard the TV on downstairs. So, I decided to, go downstairs, and I forgot some. I wasn't sure if anybody shut the TV off or not. So, I go downstairs, and the TV's on, but me being half awake, half asleep, or whatever, I just walk right into the living room, and I shut the TV off, but then I just had this funny feeling there was people in there. I thought I saw people, but I wasn't sure. But if I saw people or not. I remember I thought I saw people in like period clothing, like from the 1800s, like old style clothes. I didn't know what I just old. It looked like old style clothing to me because I was a kid. But I was thinking, no, while I was walking up the stairs to go back to bed, I was like, did I see what I thought I saw? And I wasn't too sure about it. And I didn't say anything to my parents or nothing. Because, they were like, that's just your imagination, whatever, and so then I'm about to go back to sleep. I heard the TV again. So I was a little leery that time. But still, I started walking downstairs. I got to the banister. I didn't completely walk down the stairs, and I decided to look over the banister to see if the TV was on. And it was. The TV was on. And I looked around in the far front room, which, back in those days, the front room was, like the parlor area where people sat and visited and talked to each other, whatever. That was, our house was built in the 1880s. So I looked and I couldn't see faces or anything. I could see a few people standing around like they were talking or whatever, but I could not understand what they were saying at all. And I was at a distance, and I could see like old style clothing, stuff I would never wear. I was just a kid. I could see old style clothing of these people. And they knew I was watching them. They knew I was watching them. I just got that thing where you get so scared that you can't move, and I didn't understand what I was seeing at the time. I did not know what that was. Being so young, I didn't know what that was. But I couldn't help it. It was fascinating to me to see that. And all of a sudden, I felt like I was being watched, and all of a sudden I turned to look, and these figures just disappeared. TV's still on, but the figures disappear. And I tell you what, I did not go downstairs to turn the TV stayed on all night long. That was crazy. That was just wow. I was very fascinated by that. I was scared, but I was also like intrigued and curious of what that was. That was the second time. And the third incident we had at that house was my parents used to throw parties and stuff every night, not every night, but every weekend my parents would play cards and get together with friends, and they'd throw parties and stuff every weekend. Well, one weekend, I don't remember the whole thing. I don't, or not much about this at all, but one weekend, I guess, we were all around the table, and I'm not sure how this object got at our house, if somebody brought it or anything like that, but my parents somehow ended up having a Ouija board at the table with everybody. And I'm not sure who decided. I'm thinking now that my parents must have known the house was haunted. Maybe. So I never really asked them about it, but I'm believing they did think it was haunted. But they ended up getting a Ouija board. Somehow a Ouija board ended up in our house that night. And so everybody's around the table, whoever was there at the time, and my dad says, well, everybody hold hands. So we all did, and they had candles. I think they had candles. I think they had a couple candles. And I'm trying to remember this story because it was over 40 years ago this happened. So I remember little bits and pieces, but I don't remember it all. But anyway, I can remember my dad asking a certain question. They asked a lot of questions, but I don't remember most of them. But this one I kind of remember. My dad asked a question. I can't remember if he asked what the person's name was or who was there or anything like that, but I remember him saying, if you are present, if you are here, please give us a sign. And after my dad said that, my dad's chair almost fell over because for some reason his chair somehow ended up in one of the legs ended up hitting a small hole in the floor and made my dad's chair tumble. And my dad cannot remember how in the world that hole got into the floor. There was no hole there before, and he does not remember how in the world that ever happened. And after that, they quit using the Ouija board. That was it. That they were done. They thought they were playing a game or whatever. That was it. My dad's like, no, we're done. That scared the hell out of my dad. Few weeks go by, and my aunt is watching us, and I talked to my mom and dad, and I don't know why I wanted to do this, but I did. I decided to take my room, and I talked to my mom and dad and see if they could make my bedroom in the attic. So they did it, they put my bed and everything in there. But like I said, a few weeks go by, my parents go away, and my aunt is watching us. And we had to be in bed before mom and dad got home. My aunt let us stay up and watch movies and all kinds of stuff and just stay up a little bit later than normal. But she's like, hey, your mom and dad just called. They're going to be home in an hour or so you need to get to bed. And this was my first time ever sleeping in the attic at that night. First time ever. First and last time ever. I never did it again after this night. So we go to bed. My brother goes to bed, gets ready for bed. I get ready for bed and all this. And there's no light in this attic or at all. Back then there was no light or nothing in there. So I had to actually have the door open from the other room for the attic so I could see. So I told my brother, turn the light off. I'm in bed. Go ahead, turn the light off or whatever. So I'm in bed and I'm, half asleep, half awake. I'm almost totally asleep. And I started hearing voices, like disembodied. I didn't know they were disembodied voices back then, but I heard voices. And I opened my eyes. I kind of opened my eyes, and I thought at first it was my aunt, my brother in the other room or whatever. So I go and yell and say, hey, so-and-so, are you awake? And you guys up here? And nope, nobody was upstairs. My brother was asleep. My aunt was downstairs doing whatever. So I'm like, okay. I'm a kid. Whatever. So I almost go back to sleep again. I'm almost halfway asleep. And all of a sudden I hear the talking again. And I kind of remember I remember female voices and a male voice. And I'm trying to sleep. But I'm half asleep, half awake. And these voices are talking. And I hear one of them say, well, who is he? Who is he? What? And they're talking, it's kind of like a whisper. And the other one, the male voice that I heard, I don't know. And there was a female's voice, they were talking, well, what is he here for? Just weird. It just unexplainable why I could hear these voices, and I was starting to get creeped out. I was trying to sleep, and I thought I was dreaming it, but then I think, no, I'm not even asleep yet, so I can't be dreaming this is happening. Next thing I know, I feel something cold touch me, like touch my shoulder or like move the cover. I felt like something moved my covers and touched my shoulder, and like they were trying to figure out what I was or who I was or what, whatever. And I kind of like at that moment, I kind of like opened one of my eyes a little bit, and I saw people in the attic, but the attic looked kind of different. It didn't look like it did when, normally. It looked somewhat different, like it was a different type of room or something. And I could see people kind of looking down at me, and I was like scared. I was scared stiff, and I just closed my eyes and tried my best to go to sleep and just thinking I was dreaming about this or whatever. And I couldn't do it. So I hightailed it out of the attic. I did not look back. I knew there was still people staring at me or something. I jumped out of the bed. I hightailed it out of there. And I ended up telling my aunt about what happened. And of course, you know, me being a kid and stuff, she didn't believe me. But, you know, I knew it happened. I knew what I saw. And I do kind of remember the gentleman's face, what it looked like. He had a beard. He had just like a short goatee beard and, you know, things of that sort. Like, now after that night, a few weeks go by, me and my brother, were outside playing in our front yard, and, this car drives up to us, and we're in our front yard. My parents are out there, and my cousins. Gentleman drives up and, you know, says something to me and my brother. Would you guys mind if I took a picture of you in front of this house? And we're like, you know, I was thinking, okay, that's fine or whatever. He told us that his grandfather lived in this house about 40, 50 years ago, something like that. Now, back then, it was in the 1970s. I can't remember what year, but it was in the 1970s that I was a kid living there. So he was saying that his grandfather lived there 50 to 60 years before that. So, and I asked him, I said, oh, really? That's cool. Your grandpa lived here, and what he looked like. And he told us that, he kind of described him a little bit as being a shorter man with a grayish color hair and a slight beard. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. You know, I saw your grandfather. I saw him. And the guy told me that his grandfather had been dead over 50 years. And to this day, I won't forget those memories of, you know, that happening to me. That's my ghost story, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and much love, everybody. Take care.
Alright, this is the Traveling Buddy, and this is my ghost story for Amy's video here. My video starts at a summer place that we had when I was a kid. And when I used to have a paddle boat I used to take out on the lake, because it was right on a lake. It's called Silver Lake Sand Dunes area. And I used to go fishing out there all the time. Well, one summer, when I think I was about 14 years old, we went up there for the summer. You know, school had just gotten out. We went up for the summer. And got up there kind of late one night. So, you know, next morning I got up real bright and early because I wanted to go out fishing. Got my paddle boat out. I used to troll around on the lake. You know, and it was nice. It was a little foggy out, you know, when I was out fishing. Just kind of trolling around on my paddle boat. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this sailboat come out of the fog. scared the crap out of me. And I was like, what the heck? And who's out sailboating this early in the morning? Because it wasn't even really daylight out. And I could see the people. It was a man and a woman sitting on the boat. And they waved at me as they went by, and I kind of waved back at them. It's just like I was thinking about, who's out sailboating this early in the morning? But I didn't think much more of it. I went on fishing. Well, later that day, got back to our place, and I was talking to our old neighbor that lived right next to us up there. And I was telling him about, I was out fishing, and they said, yeah, these people out sailboating early in the morning. And as I was telling him about it, he goes, wait a minute, what do these people look like? And I kind of described them. It was a man and a woman, and all that kind of stuff. And I could see them pretty close. He said, hold on a minute. And he went into the house, and he got a newspaper. From about a week before we got up there, and he showed this newspaper article. He goes, did they look like this? And I'm like, I looked at the pictures, and I am not kidding you. It was the same people in the pictures. A week before we got up there, 2 people went out on a sailboat. Their sailboat flipped over, and they drowned out there on Silver Lake. And that day, that convinced me that I saw some ghosts, because I could see them real close. I said, yep, I saw some ghosts out on that lake. Those people were still out there sailing. So that's my ghost story, Amy.